everybody, my name is Annie Brown. I'm here to talk about Christian leadership. So for me, Christian leadership, the definition of that is guiding others through a process, joining God in humility. So if we break that down, of joining God in humility, meaning that we know that we can't lead on our own, that it's not about what we're doing, but that it's about what Jesus has done. And that means by what he did on the cross, by dying for us, that is inevitably what, brings us into a redemptive life, and what brings us into the new life with him. So we realize that we can't do it without him. So we join him in that. It's not just us, it's with him. Then guiding others through a process. So life is a process. Nothing really in life stays the same. Things come in and things come out at us from all different directions. And it's realizing that as Christian leaders, we guide people through that process. It's not about bossing people around, but it's guiding others through it. So if we dig a little deeper, Geiger and Peck in their book Designed to Lead said that if we want to lead as Christians in Christian leadership, we need to focus on the realities of creation. And they said in their book that this is core beliefs that provide the basis for understanding the creation we exist in. And these kind of beliefs that they're talking about is God's word, which is truth, ministry urgency, which is time and space, and desperate and dignified, which is the nature of humanity. So Geiger and Peck are saying that in order to lead as Christians in Christian leadership, we need to focus on, how the world was created, how we were created, what we were created to do by God. And that again is by God's word, which is truth, ministry urgency, which is time and space, and desperate and dignified, which is the nature of humanity. And that is kind of how we are built as people. Because as we know, people are different, right? Everybody is different in person. We have different traits, different skills, all types of things. And this is what ties into how we can lead then. There are a bunch of different approaches to leadership. And Northouse explains a lot about all these approaches in his book, Leadership. And for instance, some of these are traits, skills, behaviors, and situations. All those are different approaches that we can take onto for leadership. So in Christian leadership, we realize that we have to do it with God, and we are with him, joining it in humility through the process. And then we can focus on, okay, what is the best way for me to lead? If I know who I am and why I'm made, then what is a different way that I can lead in Christian leadership? And this is where spiritual formation can come into such a big, big part. I love spiritual formation. I took a 6-month course called Faith Walking through the Vineyard that greatly, greatly helped me with my spiritual formation. So spiritual formation is kind of finding out just like how you're made, such as if something happened when you're a kid that made you think a certain way, and then later on, 20 years later, this decision you made was kind of inevitably based on that event. And if we don't know those events that happened and how we're made, then we're not going to know maybe what the best approach is for us to lead at. So, for instance, one thing that I had happen when I was younger is I went up to preach on a youth Sunday, and right before I went up, the youth pastor basically said, she's not preaching, these are the reasons why she can't, this is the reason why she's not, because she's a woman, and he listed off a bunch of reasons and a bunch of things that women can't do in the church right before I went up to do this. And it was a big misunderstanding of what I was doing, and so it really took me aback, and it really subconsciously made me think that I could never step out. I could never step out and do what I felt the Lord was calling me into. I couldn't step out and, do what I was passionate about. So then I found out that I was doing these things later on that would inevitably come from that one event. For instance, so I took an assessment for the skills approach. So for a bunch of these approaches in Northouse's book, there's all these assessments that you can take to see maybe where you are in your leadership approaches. So within the skills one, I found out that I have a very high technical skill and a low human and conceptual skill. And so this is kind of how So technically I'm good at doing things, right? I'm good at doing minuscular things around, but when it comes to human interaction or conceptually thinking, like big picture thinking, I struggle a little bit more with it. And that makes a lot of sense because after I made that subconscious promise to myself that I wasn't going to step out, I made sure to do everything perfectly for people. I made sure to do everything, minusculely right so that I wouldn't have to step out and ask to do anything, that they would ask me. So asking people to do stuff, human interaction, was really hard for me. Or conceptual thinking of this is what I want to do with my life. This is what I feel the Lord wants me to do in my life. So that was a whole thing. It was so interesting. So when I took that assessment, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense that is how I am in the skills approach. So basically, spiritual formation helps us to understand maybe what our approach is best, or maybe what we can grow more into within our approaches. So overall, Christian leadership is joining God in humility and guiding others through a process. Thank you.